So in this video I'm going to show you how to create a diffusion type texture with Substance Designer, and right here you can see some examples of what I have created with this technique. So let's get started. Just open Substance Designer, create a new substance, and choose the empty template. 1024 x 1024 pixels is alright. You can call it whatever you want. I'll call it R&D for reaction diffusion. Okay. So since it's empty, we don't have an output defined, so I'll just choose an output node. And I'll set the usage to RGB, because we don't need the alpha channel in this case. The next thing you'll need is some sort of noise. So I'll just take the plasma noise. It really doesn't matter what. You can also use a pattern. You just need some sort of black and white input to make this all happen. The next step would be to blur this with a HQ grayscale. The default value of 10 is fine. And then blend that as a foreground with the blended version of the same thing. So blurred version, just blur it 3 times, pipe it in the background, and then we'll have to set the blend node to subtract. Okay, and now we'll start to see those lines coming up here. That's exactly what we want. So we'll just choose the levels node to bring up the contrast so we can see those patterns evolve. So just bring that up. And always check to see how my edges look. Because if you got a little bit too far in the contrast, then you'll start to see those pixelated edges, which I don't really like. If that's what you're going for, then go for it, but I'll just keep it a little bit softer. So you would want to just duplicate this a bunch of times so you start to get that effect. If you want a more in-depth explanation of why this works, Entagma.com has a very has a nice tutorial on that, and I think there are a lot of scientific publications out there that can explain the process of it all far better than I could ever. So if you're interested, just Google it, look it up. I'll link in the Entagma tutorial down in my description. So you'll start to get something like this once you have duplicated this one instance a bunch and connected it. But as you can see, this is a little bit bloated. It's not a very nice way of doing things, since if you would want to change the value of this blur node, since you can change it down to 5 and it will alter the result a little bit, and if you want to play with it, then this is not an optimal way of doing it, plus it just doesn't look as nice and cleaned up as it could be. So I would just suggest you delete all of this we just did, and then just take this and summarize it into one node. So for this, we'll have to create an input node at this point, and at the levels node, create an output node, like so. Then select everything and create a graph from the selection. You can call this whatever you want. I'll just call it instance 1, since it's the first instance. And our instance will pop up in our Explorer, so we can just drag this in here again. So here we have the node, which we can now duplicate to create the effect just like we did before with this, but it just looks a little bit nicer. So just duplicate this a bunch of times. Just hit Ctrl D if you don't know this. Ctrl C and Ctrl V also works, but Ctrl D is a little bit faster. So once you have connected this, you'll start to get something that looks pretty cool. Yeah, so that's about it. And this is also kind of bloated like the first time around, so the thing you can do now is the same thing we did before. Create an input node and an output node. And this, then just create a new graph from this selection. Call this reaction diffusion node. Okay, wonderful. Now I can put this aside. Get this thing here. Drag your node back in again. And now you have a reaction diffusion type node. So whatever you put in here will be transformed in that sort of texture. So now you can start playing around with other noises, such as Perle noise zoom. We'll get something different. Or let's try the pattern. What I found quite interesting is the pavement. Oh no, it's noises, I think. Yeah, the pavement noise. That is quite interesting, actually. If you use the transform node to just stretch it out a bit, I think. Just move it around a little bit. Start to get some interesting shapes once you play around with it. So here you can see, and of course you can also look at it in 3D. So view outputs in 3D. There you go. So if you scale this down a little bit further, whoop. No, the other directions. Make it bigger, I think. Oh, let's see. Yeah, really just play around and see what you can get, because it's quite interesting what can happen, and very unpredictable. As you can see, I have no idea what I'm gonna get out of it, but it looks quite cool. And then you can also just put the transform 2D node behind that, scale that down, oops, so get something like this. So that looks interesting. Or play around with maybe the dirt gradient. Let's see what happens. Oh, that's interesting. Let's get rid of the transform 2D node there. Well, now I'm just rambling. So that's about it, really. Now you can just play around with it, see what you come up with, and I'm excited to see what you guys are gonna do with it. And I'll upload my Substance on Substance Share. So if you don't want to recreate this, then you can just download it. But it's so simple that I think everyone can do this, and it's fun. So yeah, thanks for watching.